Hi everyone, welcome to Difference Frames the World, a channel to see the world differently. Please subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification so you will not miss our videos uploaded every week. Today we talk about China mainland's military drills and discuss whether the new Taiwan leader will become the last leader of the Taiwan island. From May 23 to 24, the Chinese military's Eastern Theater of Operations organized troops from the theater's infantry, Navy, Air Force, and Rocket Force to carry out the Joint Sword 2024A exercise around Taiwan, a serious warning to Taiwan's separatists and external forces. Many people wonder whether Beijing will unite Taiwan militarily, and whether a war is coming between Taiwan and China mainland. Our take is that Beijing is making progressive moves, but it is improbable that the war will come shortly. The Chinese government did not mention peaceful reunification earlier this year in its annual report during the two sessions, as it did in previous years, meaning the chance of a military reunification is higher than ever. After Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan in August 2022, Beijing had 4 military drills around Taiwan, with its airplanes closer to the island every time. We made a video when Pelosi was in Taiwan 2 years ago, saying China should thank her for offering a rare opportunity to besiege Taiwan. Since then, the People's Liberation Army sent its warships and warplanes to patrol the waters surrounding Taiwan as if paying regular visits to neighbors. For decades, Taiwan has believed that a median line splits the Taiwan Strait. China mainland never acknowledged such a theoretical median line, also known as the Davis Line, which was defined down the middle of the strait by U.S. Air Force General Benjamin Davis Jr. in 1955. The U.S. pressured both Beijing and Taipei not to cross the median line to maintain a status quo, but it has never gained official or legal status. Beijing crossed the median line in August 2022 after Pelosi paid a blatant visit to the island, and Washington stood by without doing anything. USS Reagan fled like a rabbit when China's missiles reportedly flew over Taipei. The so-called Davis Line ceased to exist anymore, and in a recently published Chinese map, the 9- line in the South China Sea became a 10- line, as Beijing added 1 dash to the east side of Taiwan, claiming the waters surrounding Taiwan as part of the People's Republic of China. For nearly 5 decades after the Republic of China lost China's mainland to the Communist Party, it ruled Taiwan Island and claimed China's mainland, and even Outer Mongolia, an independent country, as its lands. When Lai Ching-te became Taiwan's elected leader in the mid-1990s, he started the Taiwan independence move, aiming to separate the island from China. From then on, the Taiwan authorities have been trying to use the word Taiwan to avoid mentioning the Republic of China, unless they have to. The word Taiwanese, like Cantonese in China's Guangdong province, formerly referring to the Chinese people living in a part of China, Taiwan, is now more frequently hinted by Taiwan's independence elements as a term of nationality instead of merely identity. The newly elected leader, Lai Ching-te, claimed the Republic of China Taiwan as a sovereign country on May 20, 2024. He went one more step closer to Taiwan's independence than his predecessor, Tsai Ing-wen, although only 2/3 of the people on the island voted against him in the election. He believes Taiwan deserves more support from the U.S. than Ukraine does, and the U.S. did show its so-called support before Lai Ching-te stepped into office. On May 8, 2024, the U.S. sent one of its Rusty-guided missile destroyers, USS Halsey, to sail through waters near the Taiwan side in the Taiwan Strait. The U.S. Navy's 7th Fleet claimed it to be a routine transit to safeguard navigation freedom per international law. In March 2024, the USS John Finn also crossed the strait, and in April 2024, a U.S. Navy P-8A Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft also flew over the alleged international airspace near Taiwan. Although the Taiwan Strait is almost 10,000 miles from the United States, the U.S. Navy regards it as America's doorstep, not China's. The Pentagon frequently sends its antique warships there to show Taiwan's separatists that the U.S. will protect Taiwan with those corroded boats. The new Taiwan leader is more confident than the Ukrainian president in America's willingness to sacrifice American soldiers' blood for their security. Taiwan's independence elements were told to withhold Beijing's attack for 90 days so the U.S. military could cross the Pacific Ocean to save them, and China's mainland should have also known it. Beijing has learned from Russia's mistakes in Ukraine, so it will not allow Taiwan to withhold its assault for more than 90 hours. Its military drills in the past days involved the world's most formidable infantry, navy, air force and rocket force, besieging Taiwan from all directions, including the north, east and southeast where foreign forces in Japan, South Korea, the Philippines and Australia might come from. Beijing called the drills a punishment to Lai Ching-te, whom it referred to as a separatist for his tendency to break the island away from China. On May 20, 2024, Lai Ching-te said Taipei and Beijing are not subordinate to each other, which implies that Taiwan and China's mainland are two different countries. The new Taiwan leader blamed Beijing's two-day military drills as blatant provocations, and he appealed for international support from his friends who promised to support him. A statement from the U.S. State Department on May 25 showed America's deep concern after the drills were over, and the U.S. military took no action during the drills. Instead, America's two aircraft carriers rushed away from the sensitive areas to avoid potential misunderstandings and miscalculations. 2 days after Lai Ching-te delivered his inaugural speech on May 20, in which he vowed to defend Taiwan's alleged democracy and sovereignty, Beijing launched the two-day Joint Sword 2024, a large-scale military exercise around Taiwan on May 23 and 24, saying it was a strong warning to Taiwan's separatist forces seeking independence, and a serious alarm to foreign forces interfering with and provoking Taiwan's independence. On the second day of the exercise, the U.S. aircraft carrier USS Reagan headed straight for the second island chain, and the USS Roosevelt visited Singapore as scheduled, running from the South China Sea to the Strait of Malacca, 3,000 kilometers away from Taiwan. The U.S. military stayed far away from the areas near Taiwan, so Beijing would not misinterpret its intent. The exercise was Beijing's first substantive response to Lai Ching-te's inaugural speech, and interestingly, the drills were named Joint Sword 2024A. We wonder if there will be 2024B through 2024Z in the coming months, if the new Taiwan leader continues to provoke Beijing with his "to China" rhetoric. Notably, Beijing did not make preparations as before for the drills, and had not openly announced restriction areas in advance, meaning the People's Liberation Army has been constantly prepared, and the drills can turn into a real war against Taiwan's independence at any time. The drills simulated various scenarios, aiming at the independence elements on the island and foreign forces willing to interfere. As Taiwan is an island relying on the import of raw materials and export of agriculture and finished products, it is more practical to cut off its connections with the outer world than resort to direct military operations. Nearly 40% of Taiwan's products are exported to China mainland and Hong Kong. If Beijing restricts trade with Taipei, Taiwan's economy will collapse quickly. China mainland does not have to take Taiwan by force, besieging the island can be a better option. Beijing can block Taiwan's seaports so the U.S. and its allies cannot provide weapons and ammunition even if they keep their word to enhance Taiwan's self-defense. As said earlier, the U.S. military stayed away from the exercise areas during the military drills, unwilling to confront the Chinese army near the island, which clearly showed its reluctance to interfere militarily with the Taiwan issue in case of a real war in the Taiwan Strait. Beijing, however, is more confident than ever. Compared with the military exercises in 1996 and 2022, the People's Liberation Army was merely around 10 miles away from the coastline of Taiwan Island during the drills several days ago. If necessary, Beijing's airplanes can reach the new Taiwan leader's office in less than 5 minutes. In the West Pacific, the Chinese army is overwhelmingly more dominant than any other country, including the US and Japan. China mainland's Navy, Air Force and Rocket Force can strike any target in the Taiwan Strait and the South China Sea with its short and medium-range missiles. It makes little sense for the U.S. to send its soldiers 10,000 miles away across the vastness of the Pacific Ocean to defend Taiwan's so-called democracy and sovereignty. Some argue that the U.S. might resort to war to stop China's rise when it cannot outcompete China in the economic and technological areas. We hardly think so. The U.S. is a confederation of 50 states with immigrants from all over the world, and it does not have a strong central government like that of China mainland. Considering that the U.S. has not defeated any major powers since World War II, it is least likely for Washington to fight China mainland, a world power with a nuclear arsenal, for the sake of Taiwan, which is universally recognized as a Chinese province. America's shabby roads, bridges, highways and rusty warships make it look like a third-world country, not a superpower, and its economy is like a bubble based on borrowed money from other countries. A war with China means mutual destruction. Even if it can destroy China's main cities like Beijing, Shanghai and Hong Kong, its cities like New York, Los Angeles, Seattle and Chicago will be ruined as well. Few politicians in the States are stupid enough to risk their country's future to have a war with the Chinese, and former US President Obama already realized this in 2008. Beijing, Taipei and Washington all know the US can do little to save Taiwan, so the Chinese army becomes more assertive every day. The military drills on May 23 and 24 have told Taiwan's independence elements that if there is a war between Beijing and Taipei, it will be lightning fast and may end in days, not weeks. We are unsure whether Lai Ching-te will become Taiwan's last leader, and if Taiwan will have another election a few years later, but we are certain that Beijing has decided not to wait for another 10 years to unite with the island. A high-speed railway, HSR, connecting Beijing and Taipei, was made public on China's Baidu Maps showing, under construction, 2 years ago, which means China's reunification has commenced and will be expedited shortly. We predicted 3 years ago that Chinese President Xi Jinping would unite with Taiwan under his presidency, and today, it is still valid.